how are you doing today? A little rainy outside, but I'm glad you are able to stop and take some time out of your busy schedule. And welcome to the February DSS Board meeting. At this time, I'd like to take a moment of silent prayer or meditation. All right. I'd like to get a motion about.
I move to approve of the minutes as mailed, Mr. Chairman.
I second.
Oh, no,
This is
wait
the
a minute, to an agenda.
Good agenda.
Before.
I move that we accept the motion for the agenda if there is any.
I second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Question? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Next, I'd like to get some see what on the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any
I
additions?
move to approve the minutes.
I second the motion.
The agenda's what we're supposed to be.
We did that first.
Yeah. We're right.
You know,
Okay.
that's all.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded to accept the previous minutes. Question? Okay.
All in favor?
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, we're going to start next with the status of the agency personnel, and that'll be by Mr. George Perry.
We have a total of 15 vacant positions within the Department of Social Services. 5 of those positions are frozen. We're in the process of interviewing for 2, advertising for 2, and we're waiting on background checks on 3 of those positions. Since the last time we met, we have filled 2 of those positions. One with Timothy Hinley, he's the staff attorney, and Melissa Grant, who starts today in our Food and Nutrition Services program. So we're making progress in trying to get the positions filled.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good, I think.
Good
That, yeah, because that certainly is going to help things out as we get full staff. How's it looking for the other vacancies that we have?
We, with just the 5 positions frozen, we're looking good.
Okay.
And we have started, Brian is interviewing Margaret, waiting on the background checks. So as soon as we get the background checks back, we'll be able to fill those 3 positions that she has vacant. So we're moving in the right position as long as we don't get people resign. You know, as people resign, then you have to wait 30 days. And if they have payouts, then that time is extended on the 30 days. So if we can just keep the staff that we got, then we're looking great.
Okay. What I like about what you're saying, it seems like you have a plan in case people do resign, and you have some timelines, and that's very good to hear. Also, appreciate this report that you're giving us because it tells us where people are as well as who's up next and who you're going to fill next. Okay. Next, we have the budget amendment, and that'll be given by Peggy Quinn.
Yes, sir. The first 2 that you see on your list, the one for Greenville Utilities donations for $4,000 and the one for Parent Partner $41,000, they were on last month's report to the board. They just got put on here again. But I would like to tell you that where it says Parent Partner, I really should call that Casey Family Programs. But in addition to that, we have received, since the last meeting, $537,779 for daycare, which allows us to keep the 7-year-old children that were currently on, so we're able to keep them till the end of May. And then we also received $80 from the state for Progress Energy Neighbor Funds. That's a crisis program. And that's all we've gotten so far this
Well, that's
meeting.
okay. That's real good news about the extra money for daycare because that was a significant concern.
Does that money help with that situation with involving that meeting?
it allows us to keep the 7-year-old children that would have gone off. They were scheduled to be taken off 1st of February, so it allows us to keep them till the end of May.
Have they been informed of that, or they have been informed of that and letters have gone out? Well, that is really good to hear, because that was a significant concern, as we saw by the meeting, and our concerns that some of the children that were needing assistance were not going to get it. It was going to have a tremendous effect on the family and the children as well. So that's really good news. Okay. And next we're going to go, yeah, I'm sorry, Charles.
Pardon. That is just for the 7-year-olds. I know that when we started, some 8s and 9s were
Yes.
coming off with that. So going forward for our public, then that assistance program, unless there is some federal government change, will only go through 7-year-olds. Is that correct? The daycare program?
Yes. The 9 and 8-year-olds came off in December the 31st, and those are the ones that still off the program. We did not receive any additional funding from Division of Child Development to put those back on, but we did receive the $525,000 to help us keep the 7-years on. And unless we receive additional funding in the upcoming year, we don't know what it will look like, whether or not we'll be able to move back in that direction or not.
All right, all of these funders that we have that do not get help or funding, do we ever go back and look at them versus some of those that we have, so that we're giving this help to those who are very needy? Do we ever do that?
We have everyone that come in to apply for daycare. They're putting on a waiting list, and as we go through that waiting list, then the next person come up, we evaluate that person.
Right, but we don't. The job, it changes, and some of them that are on there, I'm sure, are making much more money now than they did before. And what I was saying is, do we have the right to take them off and put one on that we don't, Marcus?
No, we don't.
That's about what I thought.
I always appreciate your trying, though.
No, we do not do that.
But
Well,
no, we
I
can't.
think that's important. I mean, I believe in giving those that need the help the most.
Well, if they're within even if they've gotten a pay increase, if they're within the income guidelines and meet the eligibility criteria, then they meet it, and we can't take them
Okay,
off.
that's it.
But
Okay.
I wanted to clarify, Mr. Mayor, what you were asking.
Oh.
Did we make a decision as in the next about 8 and 9-year-olds we'd have for this fiscal year, but we've not made any decision about whether we're going to not serve 8 and 9-year-olds next year? That would have to be a board decision, because that would change our local policy.
I understand.
Okay.
When the money comes in, if there's not, we'll say, a governmental windfall, then at some point we need to notify or put as part of our acceptance plan, so that everybody understands that, I say that, Margaret, because I know that there are people, I know one, I have an employee that's in that position with a 9-year-old and wondering if, will there be money next year? Is this a finish out the year issue because the money was over? If we don't expect it, then as we budget, not today, but as we budget, shouldn't we notify the parents of the 7-year-olds, because they'll be 8 by next budget?
We made no, as far as I know, we made no decision that when children who were 7 turned 8, and when they were 8, they turned 9. At this point, we did a reduction in services, but we made no decision in terms of if a 7-year-old turned 8, we're not going to terminate that child at this point. That child counted in our dollars. We're not going to terminate that child. We haven't made any policy decisions about where we're cutting off the age of who we're going to serve. Like we said earlier in the fall, as we get into this budget and we look at our budget estimates, I'm sure we're going to have to make some decisions along those lines. Hopefully, we won't. Depending on what the board wants to do, if it's cut, do we want to, keep serving 8 and 9-year-olds, but we serve less children. You know, we'll probably talk about that in the budget.
But it's not what the board wants to do. We want to serve as many as we can. It's what amount of money that we will have here to
Sure.
take and use. And it's like me, I think those little kids they've got to have service. Whereas that 7 or 8-year-old, they need service and want them to have it, but they can at least get along much better than that little 2 or 3. We might as well face it. If the economy is, it doesn't look good. Let's face it, it really does not.
Well,
Federal,
I guess we'll come
state,
forward
or local.
with
we
some
might as well face
recommendations, yeah.
Yeah, we might as well face that.
As we talk about budget, Margaret, at what point, and if I heard right or remembered right last year, it came kind of sometimes after the fact or at the last minute, but as there are your state groups and state committees that you're on, are there any ways that you can get, and not an affirmative action, but at least some sense of the direction of what the state is going to do? In other words, if they're going to fund, at the level they did this year, I had rather serve less people longer and a wider group than start off and find out we're overspending and then make an announcement somewhere in the year, here we cutting out. And I know we had to do
I
that.
think we've
In-
made that
Yes,
adjustment.
sir. In February, we should be, February 15th, the state should be giving us what we call the February numbers, which basically is what I use to do the budget. And in that, we'll have some idea of what they're looking at to fund. Now, it won't be the exact dollar. It may go up a little bit or it may go down, but we should have some idea of where we're going in February.
Then it could come as a policy for how to be served.
We're talking about the state, but it's the federal government.
Well, it comes, yes, sir,
The-
it is
If the
the
federal government doesn't give it, you aren't going to get it.
Right.
Because the state is not going to do it. So it's got to come from DC, come here to the state before we're going to get it. So it's not, no need to talk about the state.
So
We're just
far-
passing it down.
The state
Yeah.
disperses
But-
it.
So-
That's
so
right,
far
but they
this-
got to have it from the
yes.
federal government.
But
So-
the state is rejecting some of it.
Do what the state protects it. So far, there's been no indication by the state that they're going to take any more off of out of daycare. See,
That's
last
right.
year the state lost $17 million of federal dollars. This year, there's been no talk of that so far, and so hopefully it'll be. I think, and this is just what I think, that it will probably be about the same amount of money for next year for daycare as we have right now without the 525. What we have.
I'm curious
The
as to
state's
whether,
cutting back everything. All you
Yeah.
got to do is to know
Right.
what's going on
Right.
with Raleigh.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you all get those emails from the regional board. If not, I want to make sure you get them, because in my email as representing this board over there, the state is rejecting some funds. This is what happened
They are.
with the election of this new administration. They are rejecting government federal funds and sending some of it back. And they are doing some things, even though they've gotten a raise, they are rejecting monies when they say lower income people. They're rejecting those funds. So if you're not getting it, I want to make sure you get on that email. Do you all get it from them?
No.
Well, I want to make sure you get them. So,
Now, what would the effect be in terms of the state rejecting funds on monies that we get?
I think what the state is rejecting, what they're talking about rejecting right now is Medicaid, because the Medicaid
That's true.
expansion, which has no bearing at all on the
some of it is child care. They said to
the
me.
child care.
Daycare. Is there a
daycare?
difference?
Well, no,
No,
daycare
same.
and child care is the same.
Same thing.
But they're debating whether or not they're going to expand Medicaid right now, and that's where the talk is. But like I said, I haven't heard any talk from the state at this point in time that they're looking to, that they've lost any federal money for child care subsidy, or that they're going to,
I'm
expecting
going
to.
to email those to you, because from the state office or that certain amount of money in that Medicaid is daycare. they were saying, as relate. I don't know, because it's not a daily thing with me that I understand that, but they're cutting back, and they're refusing federal funds.
Yeah, I know they are for
This administration.
When you are looking at your budget next year, and once you get some feel, obviously no guarantee until the check comes in,
Right.
but and you question then, but you would be setting a budget based on services that were for 12 months.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let me ask you something. I was going to ask, one of the things that I was thinking about that we would like, and I think you've done it before, is once you're getting the money, is to give us some scenarios about what kinds of directions and what kinds of things that we would be thinking given these dollars.
Yes, sir. That is the plan when Mr. Perry has you guys together for the budget review. When we get our budget together, we'll be telling you then what we think we can fund and what we cannot fund and where the problems are.
Okay, Eugene?
Yes, this is the reason we got Dwayne here with us, to keep him informed, so
Yes.
that he can keep us informed as to the county and so forth. But as Dwayne knows, and I know, they're telling us that money is going to be just as tight as it was before. It might even be worse because of your state government is sending back these. Well, look at everything what's going on up there. That tells you. I mean, when you see them cutting down unemployment and cutting it back, that's a desperate situation.
They're rejecting that as well.
And so that means.
I would just remind everybody to, back when the state came to the meeting across the river, and we talked about it in the board meeting, for us to keep this in perspective in terms of our county, in terms of the dollars. If I remember correctly, when the state put some figures together for our county in order to meet the need in our county of all the children that needed subsidy, we would need $30 million a year to meet that need. So, I mean, what we get, we want to use wisely, definitely. But, after that meeting, and I had some subsequent meetings with daycare providers, I mean, this is a community issue also in terms of what our community is doing for after-school programs and those kinds of things.
That's right.
The money we get is not going to solve the need in the community. I mean, it's a tiny little answer to a bigger problem. So, I mean, for us is just to keep that in mind, because we're not. I mean, with 1,300 kids on the waiting list, we're not going to meet that need.
Margaret, I've been bringing this out before. We need to have a better relationship with the public schools to take and have some of these kids taken care of after school. Because I had my grandkids, I babysit, and I had them at Falcon last year. They were in this day after school program, and they did wonderful, but they don't have it this year. But we could go that route some kind of way and serve probably lots more kids by doing it that way than what we are today. Of course, your daycares wouldn't like that, but what our goal is to serve these kids that need to be served and to help them out, to keep them up above, train them, so to speak, so they won't get behind in school. These parents today, I can't teach these people in the 3rd and 4th grade, and I know they can't. They're having a hard time because education has changed so much, the homework and so forth. And they've got to do this extra work if they're going to achieve and do what we want them to take and to do.
Has there ever been a workshop with the Board of Education as it relates to after-school programs, those programs that impact social services?
No, we have not had a workshop.
Maybe,
with Board of Education.
then just listening, could we do that one time to see if it would benefit our community? What y'all think?
One thing, I think it would require some conversation, but I don't know that we could do it in isolation unless we could get the state to grant, because the school board would be looking at it from the same way, a pilot program or a test program to see if you could.
Just a workshop to
That's
have
right.
some discussion. I said workshop, that means we sit down and talk about those things that we're facing in relationship to what they are dealing with.
So I guess you were saying, Eugene, that they had this program with the Board of Education and then it
If they
stopped.
could, yeah.
But with the one that you were talking about
Well,
with your
that's just,
grandchildren.
that was, we paid the teachers that did that.
Mhm.
The students that were there, their parents paid the teacher to take,
Mhm.
to keep the students and to teach them at the same time too.
So what you're saying, I
But we
think,
could work something out maybe. I don't know. You see, they have an early morning program. They've got breakfast at home and all this other stuff. That's in the early morning. But in the afternoon
about
is
it
where
now.
a lot of them go to the boys and girls club, of course.
And
But-
and that's a service that's paid for. That's not a free service. It's-
Yeah, oh yeah, you
it-
got to
it's
pay
cost.
a certain amount. Nothing is
cost.
hardly free anymore.
Yes.
I guess what is really good, and you were bringing up that it's not just a dollar issue, but a larger community issue. And like you're saying, is we're going to have to explore a lot of different things to really meet the needs with the amount of money that
That's
you were
right.
talking about that was needed with $30 million to meet our needs fully. And we have 1,300
That might
children
be something.
on the waiting list.
Well, I think, there has been some things done locally. United Way has done some needs assessments in the community. It's well documented in our community, the need and what citizens ask for, especially in high-risk neighborhoods, about after-school programs for kids. You heard parents, many of their concerns were having their children come home to an unsafe neighborhood. Some of the providers are, we're going to collaborate with some of the initiatives that are going on in the community and get providers collaborating with some nonprofit, with some community schools folks. So, it's, if nothing else, yes, we hated to do it and terminate children, but it did bring a lot of attention to the issue and a lot of attention to the need in our community, and it did galvanize some people to come together and want to talk about the issue and, raise awareness about the issue, which is a really good thing. And to keep that conversation going, but the money that we're going to get is not going to solve this problem.
No, I know that.
Well, we have, I'd like to get a motion about the budget amendments.
I don't,
Yeah, you finished.
Yes,
You did
sir.
all four. She
We
did all
started
four.
talking at it.
She did all four at one time.
Okay.
I'd offer a motion that these four items that were presented as budget amendments be accepted as presented.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
All those opposed? Okay. All right. Next, we're going to go to DSS Technology Project, and that's going to be by Hardik Patel. And that's MIS?
Yes, sir.
What's that?
That is Management Information Systems.
Ah, okay.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and give you a brief overview of the projects that we aspire in DSS to achieve in this upcoming fiscal year. If you refer to the DSS projects page in your handout, it has a chronological list of the projects that we are looking for for achieving in this coming fiscal year, not this current fiscal year, remaining fiscal year. Let's begin off with the check-in application. This was an application that was used in the DSS department for quite some time, and it was outdated. And so we recently replaced it with an application that was much more efficient and much more user-friendly. And it was released last Monday, and it was released to all the DSS workers. So an entirety of 237 plus workers all have this new application that they can use to check in and out. The next one is the vServe project. Now this project is to track the service opportunities that are presented to social services by clients and citizens that come into the agency. This will be an application that will be created to track those service opportunities and to give the management and the supervisors an opportunity to address those service opportunities in a orderly fashion and keep track of what was done by who. This effort was spearheaded by Ms. Burns and the supervisors, the volunteer supervisors who came together to define what the parameters for the business process would be. and to make sure that whatever was recorded was something that was efficient and not something that would consume a lot of time on the supervisor's part, trying to handle some of the day-to-day calls that the workers had already addressed with the clients. Okay, the third one in the list, and please stop me and if you have any questions about anything, any one of those projects. Yes, ma'am.
I want to go back to number one.
Okay.
The check-in, is that what reference our old signing in and signing out?
Yes.
And is what you're saying it's done by computer now? I mean, I don't
It's
understand.
It's computer operated where each worker is able to come in, sign in to the system where they in the office, out the office. We added another field in there where when a worker is out in the field, when they sign out to go out in the field, that they can put in the comments section that where they are, expected return. That part used to be done by paper, and we have incorporated that into the check-in system. So we moved away from having a paper form that when a worker goes out in the field, they no longer have to fill out the piece of paper to let their supervisors know where they are, whose house they visit, and what they expect to turn. This is done by the computer, and then the supervisor or another supervisor can go in and check on that worker's status. So this is one of our safety features that help us to keep up with our workers when they're out in the field.
So this is like when I was working here, I signed in and out on the computer.
Right.
Then I filled out a blue sheet
Right.
that told where I was and how long I was expected to be,
Right.
come back. Okay, so this is taking the place of both of those?
Right.
And does everybody have access to everybody?
The supervisor have access to their people in their unit. The division chiefs have access to everyone in their division.
So if
And I have access to everyone.
if I wanted to know where my social worker was, how would I, as a client, be able to find that out?
The client would not be able to find out. It would be up to the supervisor to go into the system. It's not there for a client to be able to check up on the staff.
I don't mean check up on them. I'm talking about, let's say that I'm trying to get in touch with Ms. Burns. And, well, she's not a worker. Okay, let's say that I'm trying to get up with Mildred Daniels. And I call and
Well,
nobody answers.
The switchboard will have access to everyone, so the switchboard can let you know that the worker in or out, expected time, so the switchboard will have access to that information.
So the switchboard does
Right.
have access to this
Right.
system.
Yes, and that was one of the other features that were added to the application was a DSS check-in board, which gave the switchboard users all the information right there in front of them. So that way, if a client calls in, they don't have to look at 3 different pieces of paper and a software application to find out where that staff is.
Okay, this may be out of order, and forgive me if it is, but I have tried recently to get through the switchboard, and nobody answers. And I have been told that that is because the people can call their workers and staff one-on-one, and the staff was kind of short in the answering of the phones, meaning the number was short. So how does that address?
Well, the switchboard part where the clients call in is completely different than the check-in. The check-in application is for the staff themselves. When the clients call in to the switchboard, what happens is you have the clients calling in and the phones are ringing off the hook. Well, that's where the switchboard person interacts with the application and gets the next phone in line, answers that phone call, finds out where the information, where the client, where the worker is, the latest status update for that worker, and then relays it to the client, and then gets the next client. And so the amount of phone calls coming into the agency are overwhelming the switchboard staff to be able to address all the client needs. And we've made some changes in routing those calls. For example, there are a lot of calls that come in just for knowing the times that the agency is open. And so we have added an option on the switchboard to route the client to an automated message that would tell them that the agency is open from X time to X time. And so we're trying to mitigate that issue. However, we have, from what I've seen interacting with the front desk or the switchboard, is the amount of calls that come into the agency it greatly overwhelms the front desk staff and the switchboard to enable them to answer each and every one at a opportune time. And so there are cases where you might not get an answer for some time, or you might have to be placed on hold.
Is anything being done to help that situation? Is there anything that can be done?
Well,
Only thing that can be done, each worker have a direct number.
Right.
So if the clients call that direct number, that will reduce the number of calls that come through the switchboard. So that's the purpose of everyone having direct numbers as opposed to extensions that you can call in directly to your caseworker, and you don't have to worry about coming through the switchboard.
And that's my point. If I called Mildred Daniels because I know her direct number and nobody answered the phone, how would I find out whether she just happened not to be at her
The
desk?
only way you will find out would be you will have to contact the switchboard. Now, all the systems are set up that you can leave a message on the worker phone and the worker can return your call. Now, if you elect to try to find out whether or not the worker is in the office, and that means you will have to go through the switchboard. And you will have to wait until that call come up, and those calls rotate. We only have 2 people that operate the phone system, and then we'll have the third person that acts as a receptionist as well as answer the phone. So we have a high volume, like Hardy said, we have a high volume of calls coming in. I would suggest that if you want to get in touch with someone, leave a message on that person's phone system, because if the person not in the office, only thing that the receptionist or the switchboard operator is going to be able to tell you that that person not in the office. So you still will have to end up leaving a message or calling back.
So we have a lot of questions. Go ahead, Charles. Did that address your issue?
We hear these.
Okay.
How many calls do you generally get a day on the average? What's the number?
I had that report.
You know?
Well, we lately haven't looked at the data, but I could definitely.
I
get
have that data, but I had it for 3 months.
That
so I don't-
determines, you got 2
14,000 a
people
month.
Huh?
About 14,000
a month.
a month.
That's a month. 14,000.
Uh,
That's 14,000.
Is
See,
that-
my question related to statistics. What comes in, does the system tell you that?
Yes,
And
it
if
does.
the calls are just, are you open, or are the call asking for a specific person or whatever? If the system can tell you that, that would help some of the concerns that we have. And that was my question to you as it relates to statistics, and generate that report so that we could understand, because we are hearing all kinds of things in the community about not being able to reach and not being able to communicate. And that's the problem you have. And when you go and someone get you to take them to the office down there, you get some idea as to what's happening. And you see all this circus there. And so it makes you wonder as a board member, even though you sit there and just pay attention. My next question.
But what you were saying is that this was about calls, and that sometimes people are calling in and they're not getting through, the same as you were
So
saying.
if the system generates that, that's a report that we probably.
The system generates that report. And I ran that report for July through October just to see how many calls came in through the agency.
That might be good for us.
And it listed the switchboard, it listed each worker, shows the call coming in, the work calls going out. So we do have the capability of pulling that
And my
information.
next question, and then I will finish with that check-in part, is this more work for the employee or less? Because I've never worked within the system. So is this more work? Will it cut down is it increasing their workload or reducing the steps that they have to go in? That's my question.
I would say that it's decreased the amount of work, because if you look at originally They had to sign in and out, and then they had to fill out a blue sheet and turn that blue sheet into the supervisor. Now when they leave to go out into the field, everything is done right on the computer, and the supervisor can go right there and pull it up. So we have eliminated one piece of paper, as well as made it more efficient that supervisor can check, the program manager can check if the worker's out in the field and we need to get in touch with. We have a general idea of where that worker is, and
Because if it
contact
reduces
them,
it, it increases the service
Right.
results.
Okay, Charles?
When the calls come in, and I heard there was a receptionist and two others, is there a routing system, Mr. Patel, for the phone, so that if, I'll say, the first person who answers the phone, switchboard, we'll call it, operator, and then you said there was two
there's
switchboard operators?
two receptionists, two switchboard operators,
All right, and then a
then a
receptionist
receptionist.
that it can transfer, so that the public knows we have three steps, although we're facing a very big volume. We have three steps in place of people trying to respond to that. That's your understanding.
From my understanding of the system, that is correct.
All right, and I think that data, how do you handle all of our open hours, 8 o'clock till 5 or whatever the hours are, all of our open hours, the switchboard is banned by different people, but by
switchboard.
those three?
The switchboard is operated by those three individuals. In the event that there's something going on in that unit, then we pull people from other units to operate the switchboard. But on a regular day-to-day basis, those are the three individuals that work it.
All right, I'm not as interested in the individuals as I am. It is covered
It is
through
covered,
lunch times
right.
and through those times
Right.
by three different
Right.
steps and procedures, different people fill in.
And the switchboard here also works the folks across the river?
Right. We do not have a separate switchboard for
It's
cross
an
the river.
integrated system.
It's integrated. All calls come in through the main line here, and then they're sent to the worker.
And you
So-
still have a paging system?
We still have the paging system. So we encourage clients to call the worker directly as opposed to going through the switchboard.
Each client knows who their worker is. Are they given that information
They
by
are
the worker?
given, they are given a card with the worker name on.
And that
it-
number?
And that number, and in the event that some information is needed to complete that application, then that information is given with the worker name and telephone number. So they have the information. A lot of times, like anything, people put the paper down and don't remember who it is, and then they have to come back through the switchboard. But we constantly trying to remind them, this is your worker number, this is the number you need to call. So that way, if they can get in the habit of calling that number, then those will be less calls coming through the switchboard.
On the reserve, the next one,
Right.
I'm trying to get back to your
Oh.
point. That
Wait a minute,
item
did
number
everybody
2.
finish on the check-in? Okay, go ahead, Mary.
Item number 2, the reserve, and I realize that you're projecting to start that on February 18th. And this system is designed to track the type of services or the departmental services. You say it tracks service opportunities.
Well, service opportunities is this name, the we serve, as well as service opportunities, is something that was created by the supervisors. Is a way to handle any complaints that come into the agency from the citizen level that rises to the supervisor level, where a supervisor needs to be involved. And so this system is going to be, I'll be creating the system. And what I've done is I've created the requirements using the meetings that Ms. Burns and the supervisors held. And so this application will give them the capability of tracking the issues and then creating statistics
Right.
from that application.
Okay, so and you can generate a report from those
Yes.
statistics.
That's the eventual
as to the
goal.
complaint comes in and the resolution thereof.
I have heard two terms. I've heard calls, and then I heard the word complaints. And that what we're first talking about is all the calls. But because that's been a very ambiguous in the past issue about how it was documented, is that also, if a client has a complaint, is there any way to have a screen on there that maybe now it's my third call or my fifth call, but now it's gone from a call, where is George, to a complaint? George won't return my call. I'm just picking names here. But is there a way to include that on?
Yes.
Because that would get some data and the little flow sheet we saw last time and all that, but there's no data to substantiate it. And that would tell where it came in and where it started.
We do need a glossary, I agree with you, because in Hardick's shop downstairs, they do consider complaints, they call them service opportunities. Well, in our DSS, we call them complaints. We don't have another word for them. Thank you,
Terminology.
Hardick.
But I'm thinking while he's doing this, you saw where I was coming out.
Yeah.
You knew exactly what my question, and I heard the two terms. But why would this not be a place? And then a year from now, when we're asking for data, we won't get a little flow chart or something and find out that there is no data. If it is by whatever title, then the staff could be trained easier than the public on whether to call it an opportunity or a complaint. But that would be, if there's a way to put that in, that it comes in by phone, then you've gathered your data. There's a measurable, how are we doing for all of us?
You have to answer that.
Yeah, that is how it will be tracked. The way that a complaint comes into the agency, it will be tracked in this application. Now, the other thing that the application will be, it will be something that will evolve over time, because there is no way of putting parameters on what constitutes a complaint. You know, to each individual, something it's a complaint. And so this application will have a platform where it will begin from, and then we will add on more features as we progress and as we collect more data.
What is an application?
Software application.
Software application for.
It's an activity.
It's how you do stuff, essentially, right?
Software application where
I would like to see, and I know he doesn't have the answer today, and it's separate issues you're giving us, especially for myself, some of we computer weaker people, you're giving mighty good and clear explanations, but when that field could be added, then the worker that is dealing with somebody or the receptionist who is answering will know whether this is coming in as complaint form, or, you know, if I call and I say, I need to meet somebody, I have an urgency, that's not a complaint. But if I said, I've called 4 times and I've left 5 messages and I can't get anybody, that's a complaint. And so the staff could be trained to note that this may be the beginning. It may fizzle out, but it is the beginning of a complaint. And that data I would say, George, we need. We've been asking for it for 5 months now. I have on the board, so has Ms. Perkins. And I think if we can incorporate it in this field, then there's some chance of getting data. What we have thus far doesn't say anything.
Gotcha.
Because it could also, if it was on there, could it not also then, if it goes to a different level, or it goes to a supervisor, or goes to George, then it could be recorded right in that one.
So in other words, what would happen?
Yeah.
We'd be able to track the complaint or
Exactly.
or the name of it and see how that's
That would
handled.
actually be getting something done, and measurable something done.
Measure.
Yep.
Data and statistics and reports is basically what we're talking about?
Yep.
Is that
That
right?
is the end product that we're looking
Are we understanding the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
No, good questions. The third project on the list is the CPS note card system. Now, this is an archaic system in the Child Protective Services that we're looking to replace with something that is more efficient and something that is quick to replace it with. We're already gathering requirements. I'm meeting with the supervisors to gather requirements on what they do with the CPS note card system and how, and we're also looking at the options on how we can replace it. Not something that will be, that will take a long time to develop, but something that could be put into place relatively quickly and with a shorter learning curve for
Well,
the staff.
yeah. One of the things, is this a state system? The CPS, is that a state? No.
Child Protective Services.
No. I mean, is it mandated by the state or developed by the state, or is that just for Pitt County?
Something local.
The note card system,
Yeah.
well,
These are these
Would you
physical
like me
note
to-
cards you're saying?
We
Oh,
are,
okay.
we are mandated by the state
Right.
to keep a log. Every
Mhm.
referral that we screen in is we're required to give it a log number. However, we have no automated system. Okay, so when he says card system,
They're actual cards.
they're actually 3x5 cards.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah,
I'm not
because-
going to tell you how long I've worked here, but that's what we were using when I came to work here.
Oh, okay.
What I was wondering is if that was another application, would that be able to talk with the state system
We just,
as an example?
I
And that's
think
what
you
I was
have-
asking about.
I appreciate your forward thinking, but if we could just get the cards
Pass the
automated,
cards out.
then I'd be happy. But I think,
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Burns is going to share some in closed session, and you'll start seeing some connection between our lack of automation in some of these areas and some of our negative impact when you talk about, just like you brought up about the check-in system, does it save workers time? You know, you'll start
Okay.
seeing how that might work
Okay.
out better.
All right.
so moving on, the fourth one is the front desk DM, which means document management analysis. Now this project is in step with the NC Fast rollout in food and nutrition. And what we're doing here is we're looking at how we can improve the process in addition to NC Fast, how we can improve the process within our own organization at the front desk. So what we're looking at is when clients bring information such as driver's license, pay stubs, is there a way we can capture that information right up front so that the clients do not have to wait around to give that information to the staff? And so we'll be doing an analysis on what the process would be, what the process is, what would take to make that transition from the to-be process, from the as-is process right now to the to-be process. Meaning, what hardware would we need? You know, what kind of training, what kind of software would we need? And what kind of user learning curve will we encounter making that transition?
Basically, that's a study. What you're
Yes.
saying, that's a study
Mhm.
of what we have versus what the needs are. That's what that amounts to. Okay, thank you.
The next one is Communicator. Now, this is an application that we have used in sync with emergency management. Communicator is an application that we store all the staff information, phone numbers, and these phone numbers are personal, they're home phone numbers, where Mr. Perry and the emergency management team can activate, when they activate a shelter during, say, a hurricane. They can use, we have set it up right now in such a way that they can use to call shifts that would man the shelters. And so Mr. Perry and Ms. Burns, and they don't have to go through a list and dial each number by hand. It is something that is automated. Now, what we're changing in there is we're working with emergency management on changing up the setup in Communicator to be in sync with the change up that emergency management has done in the shelter layout for going forward in this year. And if Mr. Perry wants to tell a little bit more about the changes that emergency management has made with the shelters.
Now, I got some questions about it. All our staff is responsible for managing shelters in the event of a natural or man-made disaster. So we have, in the past, all staff assigned to different schools, but we have moved to five central schools that we'll be responsible for, and we'll be first, second, and third shift when we do our list. So if we open up North Pitt, I think North Pitt might be one of the schools. So in the event that we open up North Pitt, we already have a list of the people assigned to North Pitt shelter. We have it broken down by first shift, second shift, and third shift. So all I would have to do if emergency management say that we need to open up this shelter, I need you to open it up by a certain time. Then I can go in, designate the people that we need to open up the shelter, put a message in, what time I need you to be at that shelter, and then the phone system will contact all those individuals. Then I can go back into the system and see that each person responded. So we can do it that way. And then if we have to do the second shift, then I can do the same thing with the second shift. Just alert them through the system that you are to respond at whatever time, and the shift will run from 12 in the morning, 12 at night, till 7 in the morning, so you know what time to be there. So this is what we are doing. And we're only using five major schools that we're using, as opposed to having individuals assigned to each school.
That seems like a good idea, because seems like it'll save a lot of time, especially during an emergency, and we're able to get people out.
Exactly. Okay, so moving on to the next one, the CPS GIS mapping. With this project, we intend to collect data on the ongoing CPS cases and use the GIS, Geographical Information System tools, to map out where the concentration of these cases are, and use that data to better serve the citizens and the cases that are ongoing within the agency, and to make it more efficient for not only the workers but also for the clients, so that they have the full attention of the workers.
And this is, again, Child Protective Services?
Child Protective Services.
Would you be able to do that by zip code? Is that what you're looking at?
I still haven't started the analysis on it, and so it's not only the zip code but also the entire address. The Geographical Information System, from what I understand, uses the entire address of, say for example, a case that was brought into CPS, and uses that to plot points on the map, saying there is a concentration of cases in this part of the county.
Okay.
And
yeah. Now, one of the things I noticed, all the things that you're doing are for Child Protective Services. What about Adult Protective Services?
And that could be a pilot program. Child Protective Services could be a pilot program for Adult Protective Services. Now, that is a good idea. On here.
As you're working within the department, and as you mentioned how that can expand, who is the lead staff person on this? I know all have to be involved.
Ms. Gwen Burns is the deputy director. She's the lead person on the project, working with audit.
Okay, moving on to number 7, Northwood and AIS analysis. AIS is Advanced Imaging Services. Now these are third-party vendors that the DSS technology team is just doing a preliminary look at the products that they have for bulk scanning of DSS cases. And all we're doing here is we're just looking into the products that they have, the services that they can provide, and is that something that would help us going forward at a cost-efficient manner, in a cost-efficient way?
Such as what?
Such as scanning boxes of DSS cases that are sitting in the case files, the filing cabinets, and then making them electronic so we can put them into our document management system so that the workers have easy access to that information.
That would be the way to, at one point, bring up all of it and not be operating dual systems. One, the new computer system, and then still having that crossed over. Would that in timeline have to be done pretty close to when you started the new system, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it?
When you say new system,
Well, when you change the computer system and it's now all computer system, well then aren't you mighty shortly gonna need all files scanned and up to date? Or also on electronic?
We would like that very much.
Oh,
It would make it so much easier to get. NC Fast there is a modular in NC Fast that will allow some scanning stuff to be done, but it's not developed at this particular time. I think they're working on it now. This would be, like Northwoods, for instance, it's a software that it's not a case management system, but it's a filing system where you file your files and would make us be able to go paperless would be what it would be amount to.
And that's something that you really would like and really would help things out.
Yes, sir, I believe it would be very cost effective, but it's also not cheap, and so, trying to get funding for it is an obstacle that we would have to do, but we cannot even begin to ask for funding until we have some idea of what it might cost.
Okay. You had a question, I think, Mary.
I just didn't know that the department was so, I don't want to say far behind, but I didn't realize that the staff, even though there are a lot of vacancies, are operating in antiquated times, and that they're doing a lot of stuff by hand, like the cards. Even the library has gone to automated system where you hit a button and then it comes right out. I just didn't realize it.
Well, we are starting to try. That's why we have Mr. Hardy Patel working with us, so we can begin the process of looking how we can automate some of these things. Everything that we're talking about, some of the things doesn't cost that much money to do, but when you look at scanning, document management, some of those items will cost a lot, because you're looking at moving from paper to paperless. And everything that we do within the agency now is paper. You come in, bring your birth certificate, you bring your driver license, you bring your social security card. All that is copied and put in a file. If we can go to document management or somewhere, scanning that information in, then we have less paper, less storage that we have to keep up with. So that's some of the things that we're looking at.
But this is why the public seem to complain about you. Because now they see a machine on TV where you run it through and they saying that machine thinks for you, and I know that's not true, but, the public is so far ahead of what actually is.
Okay, Charles.
Mr. Patel came up today and has done, for me,
Yeah.
a good presentation.
Excellent.
And some explaining, but I would expect a report each month on these big items. If Gwen is the person that's managing this, a status and where it is in implementation, and that, I think that should be in our report.
There is actually a technology project team that is composed of myself, the management team, a representative from Economic Services, which is Margaretta Howard, a representative from Services, which is Kathy Parker, but myself, Brian Avery, Margaret Dixon, P.J. Quinn, Susan May, who updates our website. All of us sit on the project team, which meets once a month. And as Hardy is, these are the ongoing projects defined by the team and put in priority as far as what the team wants to see accomplished.
I understood that, and it doesn't matter to me by name whether it's you or you assign it to somebody else or whatever, but a report every month that says where the status is of it. He's given us timelines along with that, which I appreciate, and so we would know what projects were moving along and what needed support. And you may find on a project, some of these are studies, so you may find it is cost not feasible by next year's budget or whatever, but that keeps the board apprised. That's.
And my feeling is it doesn't have to be very elaborate, but just a general thing, because I think one of the things that we're trying to do more is keep track of a lot of things like that, and this has been a very good report, and we got some timelines and some things that are going on, and it's going to make what we do a lot easier.
This is something measurable. And again, understanding that something can go off the screen for lack of funding, but fine, we know it. We know whether to plug for it in next year's budget or do. But yeah, timeline and
But
a report.
I think also what this is doing is making the department a lot more efficient. And these are things that were going on that y'all have been working on for a long time. And I guess we were not aware of some of these things, and I think that's very helpful. I see your eyes going up there. Oh. Because I was just saying, well, we didn't know about a lot of these things, and these are very good, because my feeling was that some of the information that we were needing was not readily available. And I was assuming many times that it was computerized, and it was not.
But I think you can tie this back to the presentation on work strategies that, that we had in January. We saw the whole thing. You know, have that one portal of entry where you copy the birth certificate one time and it's available, and projects like that. Whereas now we're so siloed that if food stamps
Which takes up a lot of time.
Yeah, sure.
Because the whole department, by and large, is hard copy paper.
Right, and every program has its own intake, so you're asking somebody to copy something numerous times, depending on what program you're going to. So, yeah, I hope I'm
This
alive
is
to
an
see
in-house
it.
person, right?
Yes. He's with MIS department, but he's in-house.
He's in-house.
Yeah.
And the last one to round off the projects is the check-in version 2 updates. And what I mean by check-in version 2 is the new application that just went live last Monday. The staff has ideas and features that they want that will be added on to the next release that will further help make it more efficient and user-friendly, giving them the options that they're looking for.
Great report.
I want to ask this. I've been in education for a long time. You got these people that find things for other people to do. Is this going to put a great deal of extra work on the employees that you have at the present time, and how would it go about it? And I'm not trying to be smart, but
Which part are you talking about?
all of it.
Now, if you think about it, all of these things will make us more efficient.
Oh, yes, and I'm
Because,
not doubting that.
at the present time, workers were already using the check-in, check-out system. So nothing has changed there. We just had added more features to it, and we have eliminated paper that we were doing in the process.
And that needs to be done.
Right. So all these things are things that will make us more efficient. Now, with anything that you do new, there's always a learning curve. So you got to take it, and there's things that we have to learn as we go along. But like Mr. Patel said, that, once we do the check-in, we're going to come back in 6 months, look at it, see what we need to update, anything we need to change. And then by that time, 6 months down the road, people have become familiar with it. And if there's anything that needs to be addressed, we're in a better shape to address it.
I think Eugene, you were saying, is this going to increase the workload
No.
on an already strapped
well,
workforce?
No.
And that's no.
No. If you think about it, like communicator, that's something that we're already doing. But we just trying to keep the information updated, move staff around to different parts. So automation is something that we are doing. Some of the things are just improvements.
Well, see, we've been working, government, you fill out a form here, you go to another department, you fill out a form, all the doggone things are just about the same. We've been talking about this for years.
Well, we
Don't have it overlapping, see. And
Well,
that's
we have
what
the
I'm
same
talking about
thing.
on this particular
We have the
thing.
same thing within our agency, like work support strategies,
Yeah.
no wrong door. That's where we're looking at, like food stamp, Medicaid, child care.
One time.
Workers will fill out one form one time. They would not
That's the
have
way,
to do
that's
it.
what we,
But we get, we're not there yet. We're moving in that direction. And there will be a meeting on February the 18th, I guess it's called a town hall meeting, where 7 of our staff will be going to Lenore County just to listen to more about work support strategies. So we're moving in the.
That's good, because I think, well, one of the things is we're having to do more things with less staff, and one way to reach that goal is through computers, essentially. Charles, did you have a question?
I was just gonna say, and that's exactly the reason that I want a monthly updated report of, now that he's given us a broad view of these projects, not just wait till 6 months later and have somebody come in and speak globally again. Where are we? If we need to pitch within 6 months, we'll be in budget seasons, we'll be in all those things. If we need to prioritize and we need to look, then we'll know those things that are making a difference. Again, it's back to a measurable.
And if I can add one more thing to what Mr. Perry said, one of the visions for the DSS technology team is to make sure that whatever we do is an improvement in the process and not something that adds on extra work for the staff. And so one of the things that we're doing that is we're creating user groups. Whenever we create applications, and what I mean by is the software applications, is to have user groups that are consisted of volunteer staff that sit in the meeting with me and create the application, create the requirements, so that way they are aware of the process and they also have buy-in into the process.
Yeah. One of the things, we as board members, as an example, if we're looking for some data and, whatever it might be, looking at number of complaints in a particular program, or, looking at complaints with check-in or something like that, would we be able to say we'd like this report and get this data?
Yes.
Okay.
Delivered, not at our access. I would not want it at my access, of course.
Right.
But when we requested data, then there would be something that it was standing on.
Sure, and that we could use it, because more than likely, we're going to look at things and say, let's look at this with this and see what happens. Well, thank you very much. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. It's a very enlightening report.
Thank you.
And next, we're going to move to LEAP, and that's going to be by Gwendoline Burns.
Okay, I wanted to update everyone again this month on how the LEAP program is going. That's the Low Income Energy Assistance Program. It provides a one-time vendor payment to assist with the heating bill. On February 1, this program opened up to anyone. Anyone can now apply, and the program will run through March 31st or when the funds are exhausted. So that's where we are at this time. At the present time, we started at $509,783. That was the total funding for the program. We have spent at this point $248,900. The remaining balance of funds is $260,883. At this time, we've served 1,056 citizens. We've had to deny 146, and we have 11 applications pending. So that's the status of the program.
Well, first, I really appreciate that that update, because that really is something that we like, especially with a program like this. With those people that you were rejected, will they now be eligible, or will they not be eligible?
Well, the eligibility is based on the number of folks in your household, and it is income-based. So if you go over the income for eligibility, you would not be eligible for the program, period.
Okay. And how long do we have to go before we spend these funds?
March 31st is the end date for the program. But if we were to exhaust funds prior to March 31st, the program will end.
Okay.
The eligibility amount is how much?
This year, it is based on the number of folks in the household, and it's based on the income. So what we do is we put it in the system, and the system computes whether the person is eligible or not. And based on their eligibility, there are 3 amounts that they could be eligible for: $200, $300, or $400. But the system computes all of that once the income goes in there and the number of people in the household goes in.
I thought your age determined that too.
It did up until February 1. We had a target population of only those 60 or above, or someone in their household who was if you had someone in your household 60 or above, your household could apply beginning December 1 through January 31st. On February 1st, the target population and of 60 years of age, all of that no longer exists. As of February 1, anyone can apply.
Well, are you going to be able to use all that money then? You said you only had 11, I believe, didn't you?
We hope that we're going to be we're encouraging people to continue to come in and apply.
I think that's something we need to encourage them, because what you're saying, we're not going to spend all that money.
I'm not saying that. We may spend all of the money.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've got to come forth.
Yeah, they have to come and apply for the program.
I think one thing that has made a huge difference has been the crowd control that we have had in place this time. Mr. Brian Avery and Deputy Mason Paramore have done a fantastic job of figuring out a system that alerts the people as to how many will be seen. They feel like they can be seen in a day. The rest of them are told, and they know that they can go home and come back. So it has been a very controlled, orderly, beautiful situation across the river. And so I think that eventually, if this control continues and the applicants continue to come and this order is followed, that we will indeed spend this money.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Now, my question, and I think it's been answered by these two, was I cannot imagine that we don't, it's bound to have been population-based or something, the way the state gave it out, and I cannot imagine that we don't have people who are either eligible or needed. So if we see, and we are doing that right now through the medium of television, to tell people, if you think that you, now it is not age-based or that, please come in and ask to reapply, or talk with your caseworker and ask to reapply. I can't imagine that there would not be the need out there.
Any more questions? Thank you, Gwen. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to go to the daycare report that's going to be given by Margaret Dixon.
We already talked about daycare earlier, but we're pretty much, with the new money that we got, we're pretty much on the straight line to be able to continue serving the children that we are currently serving through the end of May.
Okay. All right, well, that's good. Yeah, we did talk a good bit about that. Okay. Next, we're going to go to goals and objectives, and that's Brian Everett.
Okay. If you would please look on page 28 of your packet, I'm highlighting the child support, progress made in the child support program. And there are two indicators that we look at. One is the average percentage of cases under order, and that's the percentage of the total number of cases that we have. And our target is 91% at any given time. Now, this is a moving target because the number can vary from month to month, the total number of cases. But we had, for the second quarter, the average under order was 87.01%. Our target is 91%. So we're not at where we want to be. We're working toward 91%. In that program, we became fully staffed the first part of December. There are 3 employees that are in training in child support. The employees are not new to social services or casework, but they are new to the area of child support. So we expect to see, now that we're fully staffed in that area, some improvement in that area. If we look at the total number of collections, we have collected $6,691,632 as of the end of December. And at this point of the year, to be on target to meet the $14,200,658 figure, we would hope to be at halfway. We're not halfway as of the end of December, but what is typical with this program in the months of the third quarter, January, February, March, and even some in April, there are some income tax intercepts. Some child support is received through income tax receipts by the non-custodial parents. So generally our collections are boosted in that third quarter period. So we hope to make up in that area and be on target to meet our annual target of $14,200,658.
Okay. So you're saying that with the income taxes
That's
that
correct.
we will attach, that'll probably bring us up a little bit.
We typically boost our percentage of collections during that period of time.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I want to ask you this, Brian. What percentage of males you think don't file income taxes because of this? I know there's a lot of them, because
I don't have any idea.
and the
to be
reason they don't
honest with you.
file, you know why, don't you?
You ain't got a job.
Because they wouldn't get the money, it would go in child support. You know that.
That'd be kind of crazy.
Well, that's what happens, and so they don't file. They
Yeah.
won't do it. So all the money, none of it goes to child support. I know.
That's true. That's true. Exactly.
Well, I didn't realize
Some of them
until
have
this
lost
year,
their job.
until something came to me that said, no, you wasn't filing no income tax.
Some of them lost their job and
This wasn't no job. This is a different world.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to move on to the director's report, and that'll be by George.
I had one come say, I'm not filing no income tax. Go ahead.
Okay.
We got about 3 or 4.
In the director's report, there are three things that we have in there. We have the letter to Ron Bird thanking him and his staff for coming down and attending our meeting on January the 14th, as well as thanking him for the $525,000 that they were able to revert to Pitt County to help with our child care to keep the 7 years old on our child care program. We had a special system program compliance monitoring. We had 2 cases that they cited for error. One was in the amount of $1,352. That would be a 50% chargeback that we would have to pay the state their share of that. But the $6,124, we were able to go back into our closed file, find the information to show that that insurance policy has lapsed, so we would not have to do anything on that $6,124. So we were able to find the information to show that there was no longer policy in effect for that. We would not have to do a corrective action plan since our percentage of cases out of compliance were less than 30%. So we were at 8%. And then on page 44, she just lists some of the things that she was appreciative of, how we kept our files and the information in our files, the different things that the caseworker were able to do. Then we had our food stamp negative case file review. There were 10 case files that were reviewed. These are cases that were not receiving food stamps, that was denied benefits. So what the state did, they looked at those cases to see whether or not they were denied in error. None of the cases were denied in error, but there were policy issues that we did not follow. We asked for information that we should not ask for, so we have to do a corrective action plan. The process is that You do not ask for things that you do not need. So we just got to go through the policy, make staff aware to follow the policy, and not ask for any things that are not necessary to determine eligibility. But none of the cases were denied in error as far as being eligible for benefits.
One of the things I was wondering, with the new computer system that we're working on, how would that have affected, in particular, this case, or this negative case file review?
If the person is getting, that was my question, if the person's getting all the information so that it crosses between different needs for the same client, would that be something you would alert the state and they would recognize it, that you pulled it from the computer and only used what you needed? Or how?
Only use what we needed, but, you know, when we determine eligibility, it would tell us you need this, but sometimes workers want to ask for more than they need.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
But it's saying they do not ask for more than you need to process the case. But it was alert them because they will be doing those checks and clicking the right thing, and it'll go through the process.
One of the let's see, one of the things your letter triggered, the thank you letter. Oh, did you do that?
Yeah.
Oh, one of the things that your that letter triggered in the minutes, I had talked about thank you letters and it's on page 3, and I wasn't sure how we were going to do that. I think we had talked about it, and that was for the funds that I think we had gotten for the LEAP program and those kinds of things. How we want to say thank you. Oh, from Greenville Utilities at the top. How were we going to do that? Because I don't remember, because they gave a good bit of money.
I don't think it was ever decided.
Okay.
You just made the suggestion that it be done by the board, sent out
Okay.
to
Okay.
Greenville Utilities.
All right. So we'll do that then.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to put that in a form of motion so it would be official that
Okay.
we do send thank you
I
notes to these
second that
people.
motion that Eugene has just made.
Oh, okay.
That'd make it official.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded that. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Do you want the letter to be composed and sent by the chairman?
That would be good.
Yeah.
That'd be all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Put me on your payroll. Okay. I just saw that. I just, your thank you letter just triggered that. All right. Well, we're, at this point, we're going to go into a closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we.
Read.
Do you need to read
If
it
we are
first,
ready.
or
Oh, she has
She
read
has
it.
to read
you have to read it first? Okay.
North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11 regarding closed sessions. Section A, permitted purposes. It is the policy of this state that closed sessions shall be held only when required to permit a public body to act in the public interest as permitted in this section. A public body may hold a closed session and exclude the public only when a closed session is required. Also, item number 1, to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state or of the United States, or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes.
I'd like to get a motion going into closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I move the motion that we go into
Second.
closed session.
Motion has been made and second that. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?